Hi there, and welcome to this slightly special Active London 2020 conference add-on. This is to replace the technical difficulties that we had last week with the Urban and New Sports workshop. For those who attended the Active London over the last week, you'll have heard about the importance of understanding the people and understanding the place and the support that those people and place need to deliver for their community. In this session, we're going to look to break down what sport is. Is it this notion, this Anglophonic Victoriana notion that sport is strict and codified and must be played behind these neat white lines in these specific circumstances? Or can we take it back to a time when people played on their doorstep? And that's very much the purpose of this session. My name's Matt Roebuck. I'm presenting, if we can change the slide, Abby. My name's Matt Roebuck. I'm also now known as the Active Urbanist on Twitter and a podcast, which we'll also be putting out. That is part of my Winston Memorial Churchill Trust Fellowship, which is about adapting the city for sport and the sport for city. And I'll be moderating the question and answer session. We've had some questions in from the public, who for you guys that are listening out. And I'll be talking to Katie from the Golf Foundation, Dan from Essex Cricket, and Juan from Street Warriors. So first of all, I will ask Katie Morgan, Special Projects Manager at the Golf Foundation, to talk to us about street golf.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Hello there, I'm Katie Morgan. I'm the Special Projects Manager for the Golf Foundation. Worked with the Golf Foundation for about 12 years now in a couple of different roles. And today just here to talk to you about how we have brought golf onto the doorstep of young people in inner city and urban areas. And looking at how we want to go ahead and grow it even further. Okay, Abby. Okay, so before sharing with you some of the experiences that we've had over the past 10 years in developing golf, I just wanted to show you the street golf equipment. So this is the biggest question that we have from people when they ask about delivering golf in confined areas, urban areas, outside of the traditional, is what equipment do you use? How do you make sure that it's safe? So our street golf equipment has been running for about 8 years now. Uses metal clubs, so irons and putters, but the most innovative part of it is the almost golf ball. So it's a 30% flight ball, looks and feels exactly like a golf ball, but it's not going to cause any damage. It's not going to hurt anyone, so no safety issues when it's hit up in the air and when it lands. Also in there, Astro mats, so you don't have to play on grass, you don't even have to play on a soft surface. You can use the mats to play on any surface that you want to, which really encourages that flexibility and creativity within young people when they're playing the game. Okay. So how did it all start? So in the run-up to London 2012, we realised that there was a gap in the provision for young people in golf within urban and inner city environments. Golf was seen and perceived as a sport that would only be played in a nice open green space at a golf club, that you had to be rich to play it, that it was largely a man's game. So we really wanted to challenge those stereotypes and preconceptions that golf had and bring the opportunity of golf to all young people, regardless of where they lived, what environment, what facilities that they had access to. It's around this time that we started engaging with street games as well, and working with their youth panel to really understand what people thought of golf and how we could try and adapt it to make it more suitable for kind of the teenage market. Okay. So the first thing that we did, we were lucky enough to collaborate with Citibank in a project called the Back 9, which was really focused in the East London Tower Hamlets area. We'd already started some delivery with schools and youth clubs in the area, but the Back 9 really helped us push out that message there of golf can be played in any environment. So we looked to play golf in all the iconic East London locations, which really was then the launch pad for more golf within the Tower Hamlets, Hackney, East London areas. So what I'm going to do is show you a video because it can tell you a lot more than I can probably tell you just in words. Is the sound on, Abby? Maybe I'll carry on and we can come back.
If you stop the presentation, when you go to presentation, you need to click include audio, like allow audio. So you'll probably need to stop the presentation, restart it, and there'll be a little box before when you go in there when you share your screen. No, like, so you need to stop sharing your screen and then to go to the share screen. And when you load it, there's a little box saying like include audio. It's like a little tick box kind of at the, I think it's in the bottom left on Teams.
The Back Nine is an expansion of Golf Routes, which is our national programme to introduce more young people to the game. And the Back Nine really is a way of taking golf into an urban area, and we have young people playing against some local city employees in a very adapted way.
The idea and the motivation behind this event has really been what City stands for. We want to help the young people and the communities around East London to excel themselves. And this event has really helped us to look at golf from a different perspective and make it accessible to the people of East London.
We've been developing golf in Tower Hamlets especially for the last 4 years and delivering the tri-golf and golf extreme in the secondary schools. It took quite a lot for me to be able to just go in and show them the balls that we were using because I couldn't even understand that we had different balls to use, not real golf balls.
We've got these new almost golf balls. I think they're brilliant. They're exact replica of a golf ball except they're lighter and less hard.
It'll only travel 100 yards. It gives the same flight as a proper golf ball, but it won't cause any damage, so it won't hurt if it hits you. It means that we can actually take golf into a whole new environment.
You had to chip the ball quite a long way into a skip, so it just shows that you don't have to be playing golf on a golf course.
We've built a temporary green. We've got yellow cones for bunkers, blue for water. We're hitting over natural hazards that you'd find here.
Most of that today is shooting the ball on the wall. We got some good scores. Got 120. It's going really well.
Our personal favourite has been chipping down into the new tube extension at Canary Wharf. Hitting off a balcony, hitting down blind and watching the ball drop, which is fun.
A lot of their first experience of golf, their attitude towards golf is probably the usual sorts of stereotypes.
When I first came to this day, I thought, oh my god, here's another old man game, but today just blew me away.
Being able to watch the young and the more experienced players compete against each other was quite something to watch, and both really did fight it out for the win.
In terms of our city volunteers, I think that what we really need to do is to encourage them to do mentoring and one-on-one coaching to these young people. Give them the hints and tips that they have learned during their golfing career, and really to give that kind of support to these young people that it is sport to be enjoyed.
To show that you don't have to be from a privileged background to be involved in a sport such as golf, to break that stereotype is a really positive message to show to a lot of people.
Well, it's been fantastic. Part of what we're trying to generate here under Golf Roots is the skills for life. And part of one of the key skills is cooperation, respect, and I think we've seen some great examples of that. And we hope to expand this into every city as part of our Golf Roots project.
The best aspect for me is seeing the young people really grasp this wonderful sport. And I hope that, you know, this will be one of the things that they'll continue to do. We've got a year-long relationship through this Back 9 event, and I want to see these young people grow from today to the next step. Come on, a year on, let's see what they are made of.
I'm definitely inspired to take golf up as one of my new favourite sports.
I think everyone I know, I'm going to get them involved in this.
Excellent.
The Back 9 is a tribute to Peter Welton and his vision and inspiration. It's his idea in terms of adapting golf and taking it into the East End of London as a part of the Olympic legacy. So we dedicate this to Peter Welton.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavour as to how the equipment can be used in urban areas. Obviously, we're not suggesting that that young people just rock up to Canary Wharf and start hitting balls, but it just gives you a bit of a flavour of where you can use it. So whether that be in parks, in housing estates, or even in inside areas as well. So moving on from the Back 9 project and that pilot, we started then working with street games and delivering street golf through their Doorstep clubs, but also through wider city projects across the country in other cities other than London. We continued the engagement with the street golf, with the Street Games youth panel, to make sure that all of our activity that we were planning and creating was very youth-centred, youth-focused, and they could feedback as to whether they thought it would work as well. We also then delivered Cpd workshops for street games projects to make sure that it was sustainable. So equipment was provided and workshops to make sure that you didn't need a coach there to deliver. It could just be a local deliverer, young people, volunteers that could actually deliver the street golf activity. Okay. Next one, Abby. Thank you. In 2015, we then had a really exciting opportunity. Myself and a colleague went over to Rio in the lead up to the 2016 Olympics. Obviously, in 2016, golf was back included in the Olympics, so it was a brilliant time for us to really establish street golf within the country that was within a city that was hosting the Olympics. So we spent 10 days in Rio, working in favelas. We went to schools, we went to local youth groups, just to spread the word about street golf and deliver that within the local areas, but also training up some local coaches and local young people to ensure that it was sustainable. So we left them with lots of equipment, lots of training, lots of guidance to make sure that street golf could be the legacy of golf within Rio. It culminated in an amazing kind of golf final at the Maracanã, an experience that a lot of the young people that came along had never even left their favelas before. So they got to the Maracanã, they went into the lift. It was the first time they'd been in a lift. So it was a really amazing experience to be able to get young people to experience golf in a way that they never thought. Okay, next slide. So where we are now, so as we go forward, we're really looking to develop our CPD offer around street golf. So we are working on new street golf resources, cards, activity packs, as well as developing the equipment as well, to make sure that when young people, when projects, when youth centres, schools have that bag of equipment, they have as many ideas as possible of how to deliver street golf in their area. Due to the current climate as well, we're also working on online CPD. So normally we would run face-to-face workshops. Obviously that can't happen at the moment, so we are working on some online CPD and also looking to outreach and work with some more delivery partners, whether that be through London or cities across the country really, but largely through youth centres and schools. That's it from me, I think, at the moment, but I look forward to receiving some questions and answering any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Katie. It's not a very urban link maybe, but I don't know if you've heard of the books of P.G. Wodehouse. and his short story is about golf, where these golf wages, where people play through the countryside, down to the local church, through back lanes and stuff. And just seeing that street golf presentation there and think about stories like that, it reminds us that golf is about, it's hitting a ball with a stick towards a distant target. Everything else is just the marketing, the packaging around it. It's what we tell ourselves golf is. It's a simple game. And that brings us to Dan Feist, and to steal his first slide, a simple game between bat and ball.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, and I think you summed it up well. And I think following on from Katie's, it's very clear that both our sports have a perceived perception around what they actually are and what's required to play them. And as you say, actually, when you strip that right back, it goes back to its root cause of actually what we're trying to do, which is just to have some fun and what encourages that fun. So a big thing for us is to actually just to look and listen to what was going on around and how people were actually engaged in the game. And there's some pictures here, but there's also some great photos out there of, I've seen of staff on cruise ships at the moment that have no one on their boat, so they've set up their own games of cricket inside an oil tanker that's out at sea, and really using that as a way of driving the opportunity for us across East London, as well as working with our community who are finding their own ways to play as well. So if you move on, Abigail, and click through to the slides, it's fine. It was really around that culture and understanding, and we looked through some really key points here that actually the perception was, when we did a lot of work with schools and pupils and teachers, that the perception was in England to play cricket you needed that sort of Lord's ground behind a brick wall, Mackley looked after, shirt and tie on, everything that came around with the game and everything. Where actually, if you look in the large parts of the world, it's just basically a bat and ball and play wherever you want to, and the rise of table cricket and street cricket in places like the subcontinent, but even in Australia, South Africa, where it's a huge game played in the back gardens, and opening up those opportunities for everyone to take place. Whereas compared to football, and Matt mentioned it earlier, it was literally you just put a pair of jumpers down and you can play on your old doorstep, down the side of your road, any alleyway that was available. Whereas in large parts of the world, the perception is actually, when we looked into it, that you need Wembley Stadium to play football. So actually working through these points was actually, how do we use this as an opportunity to grow participation, break down these perceptions, and just encourage people to go back. And to give you a point, we'd often ask teachers or groups when we spoke to them, and certainly in East London where we're doing PGCE courses, that how many of you have played cricket? And not many would put their hands up, which you'd probably expect. But when then you ask actually, well, how many of you have played French cricket, played on the beach, had a bat and ball and had a go? Nearly everyone puts their hands up. So actually, it's how do we capture that and really drive that forward going through? And we felt the best way to try and break that perception down was a bit like Katie's video as well, was to do a bit of just get the game out there and use some of our homegrown talent and really just raise that. So the next video will just give you an insight into actually what we were trying to change in terms of that perception of the game. Thanks, Abigail. We can move on. So we did this video, and even we were surprised in terms of the response and the reaction to it, and actually what kicked on for the people that engaged with us, who were playing street cricket, or a lot of us use it as tape ball cricket, a simple tennis ball wrapped in tape with a simple bat to play alongside. And it brought us to actually coming up with 3 simple values around what actually it does. And as you saw in that video, it just excites people to get involved with the game and pick up a bat and ball and play. We were aware of from that learning that people got in touch with us, and they were using supermarket car parks to subways to balconies on their housing estates to play the game. So we looked around actually what were the key things that they wanted to, and how could we excite them to be even more engaged with us around what we were doing. And one opportunity was for us to open up Leighton Orient's ground and get the community inside. They wanted to engage with a whole new group and an audience around their ground, and that provided the opportunity. But it also helped us to really identify and raise the profile of this really simple version and way to play, and actually opportunities of where you can play it in any location across the region. From there, I opened up new avenues for us. Things like Dagenham Market came to us and said, actually, our ground sits here empty. Queen's Market in Newham, they're saying we've got market stall holders that want to play, but obviously their work time doesn't allow them to play at weekends. Can we activate with inside the market? And all this kept helping us to break down the perception of what cricket actually required, and actually has helped us increase the amount of people playing within our traditional routes, as you might say, but also the number of players now who are picking up their families and communities and women and girls groups who are taking part because it's so easy to access and come through. It also had a real benefit for us in schools, where they had a real challenge around actually, well, we can't play because we haven't got a cricket ground. All of a sudden, we've now got inter-school games and intra-school games taking place on tennis courts, astroturfs, small playgrounds, and in areas around, and the kids really being creative in terms of how they actually play that and take place. And you can see some of the kids be involved in the session at Leighton as well, who have been taking part in those programs. That moved on into actually, well, while we've got these people excited about it, if you move on, Abigail, we now need to engage more people and look at actually how do we adapt the policy changes around this. And you'll see the top 2 pictures were at UEL's car park, working with the university. They had a large number of students who wanted to play but didn't have time to play in the established cricket club on a Wednesday afternoon or in a normal practice. So working with the university, we managed to get them to remove all their cars from their car parks for one night a week, and actually allow these students just to rock up and play in the car park. It was totally floodlit, so it was able to play at the time that suited them. And it grew weekly up to around about 100, 150 students playing on the car park. And again, we plan to do this, but that linked into then tying up into other areas, and the council's now coming involved, and actually how do we get them into actually understanding that this is a viable way of activating their communities and getting a wider range of activation coming part rather than the established routes of playing. It also helped us to activate new and engage with new areas to play around parks and community groups and community centres, and like I say, and one of our really exciting things that came from was actually our professional players coming and engaging with us, because it was an avenue that they'd grown up playing. So as Matt sort of mentioned earlier, that idea of playing in the streets, but actually we had the likes of Ravi, who has grown up playing street cricket in Newham, through to Mohammed Amir, who came over from Pakistan, and that was how he got into cricket, was playing street cricket in Pakistan. He was really keen to us and helps us in terms of profile and raising that awareness of actually you can just pick up a bat and ball and play wherever you like to and come through. And then following these 2 priorities, we came to a third value. Move on, Abigail. Which is how actually, well, now we've done this, how do we make it better for them, and how do we improve the concept that we've got? And that came into creating a brand around it. So we now have the Tornado Table Cricket, which is basically was created by the community with this whole idea that they basically rock up, create a game of cricket, and then disappear, and you wouldn't even know they've been there. So, and we noticed this in a number of areas where, say, like say, supermarket car parks, to subways under roundabouts, to local parks, where these groups of 40, 50 people would turn up, play a game for an hour, and then just disappear, and you wouldn't know. So it created this whole concept. The community brought up behind it. We then started to get more recognition. So actually, how do we recognise the players that were playing this, and how do we make them feel part of the community of cricket family? So we started to encourage having a representative team coming out of those street players, and they took part. We hosted a tournament at the county ground at Chelmsford to give them a chance to get their recognition of actually they were part of that cricket family, and giving them the profile to come through. And a big bit was then actually, well, this is the first, second generation. How do we get now further down, and actually we're encouraging schools to play and kids to play, that actually just, as much as they might have gone down and played a bit of basketball or played football or everything, this was a way of getting their families totally activated and working through with those kids coming involved and taking place in a park or in that group, and actually taking ownership that they can actually take place in the game, and that perception that they needed lords or a real established green venue wasn't required anymore, and they could just play where they wanted to. And then, so to round up, Abigail, last slide. The key message we've got is really just to listen and learn, and a bit of both from the golf stuff they picked up from those videos that you saw in Tower Hamlets, is actually what's going on already, and actually how people are being creative and coming up with ideas. And we came up with the community said to us, we've got no excuse not to play, because actually we can just play where we want to and we can rock up and take part. What we needed from us was actually some clear values that we came up with around actually giving a message to a wider community and partnership, whether that be the councils or businesses, in terms of allowing that play to take place, and then working with those groups around what they might need on top of that. So new facilities. So we've got a park that used to be a cricket ground. It's not big enough now for established hardball cricket. We've now, in fact, it's been regenerated today with a non-turf pitch that actually will become a hub for table cricket and help to raise that profile, but also encourage that engagement from one level to the next level of the game. So, thanks, Matt. That's it.
Thanks very much, Dan. It was really interested in how you spoke about listening to and learning from the community. And when you strip away what I was talking about, that Anglo-Victoriana, that kind of those elements of the sport that we've built around it, it sounds like you can really focus on making sure that that sport is reflecting its community. And therefore, with that reflection, you can also look to tackle issues that are important to it. And I think that's something that brings us nicely on to Juan Lopez from Steel Warriors, who is addressing a serious issue with genuine creativity.
Hi there, Matt. Thank you for having us on the event. So I'm the community manager. I work at Steel Warriors, and I kind of oversee all the engagement through our sessions, and then I also manage our kind of like youth intervention program, which are the two kind of main services that we provide out in the communities. So just a bit about Steel Warriors. Abby, if you wouldn't mind going down, please. Thank you. So just about a bit about Steel Warriors. Our mission is actually to use street workout to transform the lives of young people, especially those that are affected by crime and violence. And the way we do that is by helping them develop the necessary skills and confidence so that they can succeed in life. If we can call again that. Yeah, thank you. So how we go on about doing that, what we actually do is we take all the knives that get taken off the streets by the Met Police and by other amnesty organisations throughout the UK, and we melt them and recycle them to build outdoor street gyms within the communities. These street gyms are normally sited in places that are worse affected by knife crime, and they practically provide facilities and health and fitness services for really truly for anyone and everyone, but our main focus is mainly those that might not have the financial means to afford traditional gym memberships or personal trainers, and what we do is then we run a program around our gyms where we facilitate that to all people from within the communities. If we can go down again, Abby. So what our kind of vision and what we aim to do is, street workout is practically like it comes from calisthenics, and calisthenics is practically like body weight training. And what we do at these street gyms is we educate people on how they can use their own body weight to practically get fit and healthy, and how to develop a mindset that allows them to achieve goals. So what we our kind of, the work we actually do, especially with young people, is to kind of help them redefine the impossible. And we find that fitness is kind of like the perfect vehicle to allow them to do that. If we can go down again, please, Abby. And again, sorry. So our kind of three pillars on how we, our three pillars of the work we do out in the communities is a focus around physical activity and health and well-being. That's then done through our community sessions. We put on 3 community sessions a week, which are free for any person to attend. And through these sessions, what we normally aim to do is to obviously develop, as much as we want to help people develop themselves physically, we also have a kind of a strong focus on the personal development and looking at kind of the more holistic approach in terms of, like, the mindset that can also be developed through physical training. And then those two things combined is what allows us to kind of do our community engagement. And our community engagement is really kind of more focused around bringing everyone together. So people from all walks of life, different ages, different genders, different races, and it's to come together in a common unity to create a community, practically focus on fitness, health, and well-being. So yeah, if we can go down again, please, Abby. We have so our model is kind of like centered around three aspects. We've got a Steel Warrior program, which is a more focused kind of program with young people, and we use two sister programs, and it's called the Street Workout and Mentality program. And the Street Workout is more focusing on the physical aspect, and the mentality is is a program that we've developed that practically helps young people to understand kind of the principles that they need to implement and to apply in order to be able to see through on their fitness goals, and that's in order to kind of like empower them to then use that same kind of process in other areas of their life. We've got a support network, which is underground coaches and mentors. We do a lot of mentoring down at the gyms, but we also then work in schools. We work with youth centers. We work with other organizations that also do youth engagement. And then what our real focus is just to facilitate kind of like physical training and just educate as many young people as possible. As mentioned, yeah, and then the last kind of like aspect of our model is the connect, and what we kind of look to do through Connect is to really truly bring everyone together. So that's through the free outdoor community sessions. We're also going to be launching an app at the end of this year, which will help users to connect and to interact with each other, but more importantly as well to kind of actually set themselves goals and then be able to track it and follow through. And then again, our social media presence is actually kind of like one of the ways we kind of find real success in communicating with our audience. Thank you, Abby. So we're just going to talk a bit about kind of like the Street Workout program and kind of like what it consists of. If we can go down one, please. All right. So what the program's designed to do is designed to make the physical training accessible to everyone, and practically it gives an opportunity for any person, no matter their ability and no matter the age, to be able to start working towards a type of fitness goal. And what we find that when this happens is it actually sparks a chain, positive chain effect, where they then kind of look to then once they achieve one goal, it normally leads to them looking at kind of what's the next goal they can achieve. And through this process is how we look to kind of do the work we do, and then at the same time we kind of get people kind of involved. And the 3 areas that we cover is through our program is mobility. So we educate people on the importance of stretching their bodies and keeping their bodies mobile, and this directly relates with kind of like modern day lifestyle in terms of counteracting the fact that most of us live sedentary lifestyle. Even young people more than ever, because of modern technology, tend to be a lot more sedentary. But then this has a lot of kind of physiological impacts on our bodies, and we see rising numbers in young people suffering from musculoskeletal injuries such as like lower back pain, neck pain and shoulder pain because of the change of posture. So what the mobility aspect really looks to do is to kind of address these kind of common theme issues that, you know, the general population and people, you know, throughout the communities tend to suffer with, with a view to, you know, so that once they're educated and they learn how to stretch their bodies, they can practically counteract the causes of what leads to these musculoskeletal injuries. The second kind of pillar we focus on is strength, and strength is where really truly our coaches and our mentors come into play. So we have professional calisthenic athletes who deliver our kind of community sessions, and they have in-depth knowledge in terms of understanding the correct form of how exercises should be performed, and their focus is to kind of educate people on, you know, how an exercise should be performed correctly, and the importance of that is that by people learning the correct form, they're able to kind of get their body working as it should do. So getting the right muscles to engage and to do the job that they need to do in order to, you know, be able to perform certain movement patterns, and that's something that's key as well, especially when you look again at like the health benefits of it in terms of like posture and just general performance and avoiding injury. And then skills is kind of more like the more kind of advanced form of training, and kind of once someone's at a stage where, you know, they're physically capable, this is where most young people want to end up, and when not just young people, but sorry, people from all kind of walks of life. That's kind of like the area that they really want to kind of aim towards, to be able to do kind of the more cool calisthenics movements and the more impressive things, and that's what we find that people down at our gyms. Sorry guys, 1 minute. And that's what we find people at our gyms really and truly look to aim towards. If we can go down one again, please, Abby. Okay, so now we're just going to kind of touch very briefly on our mentality program. So the reason we decided to go for a mentality program is because of the actual work we do out in the communities, and, you know, the fact that we get these knives and we melt them and build the gyms. You know, our real kind of the real concept and our real kind of mission from the off was to do something about knife crime, and the fact that, you know, it's a rising issue, and it's something that, you know, is impacting our communities, especially in the urban world we live in. Is something that, you know, not many people go untouched by. And when we actually went and started working, you know, properly in the communities and in the states and with the local young people, and we started actually listening to them, and especially young people involved in crime, because these are the young people that we do work quite a lot with. One thing we understood is that the reason that they get involved in crime is because, you know, they tend to come from deprived backgrounds, which you know, has restrictions on kind of, you know, economically and restrictions on opportunities for them to kind of improve their quality of life. And when a lot of young people kind of start, especially young people that are from these deprived areas, when they start looking at what's the most viable option for them to for how they can go on about improving their quality of life, crime is normally kind of like something that is on their doorstep, and it's something that's accessible and something that actually tends to give them immediate results. But when we spoke with them, what we realized is that what they're actually trying to do realistically is they're just looking to, you know, find a way to just, you know, live a better life and just kind of get out of the position that they find themselves in. So when we started listening, we recognized that two of the biggest challenges that they face is practically working out what they really want out of life and what their vision of success is, and then how to go on about getting it. And if we can go down again, please, Abby. So obviously they have aspirations for their future, but then they don't have the opportunity. So what we found is that when we got like a fitness goal that they seen that was impossible, and then we encouraged them to pursue that as a goal. But then when we made that kind of like correlation to the fact that some of the aspirations that they have in life, may seem just as impossible, we told, what we decided to do is then to kind of look at kind of the mental aspect that kind of holds them back from being able to achieve both. So both an impossible fitness goals and both, and also the kind of life goals that sometimes these young people are trying to achieve may seem impossible. So we then went about looking how we can develop like a mindset program that could actually allow them to understand the process that they'll need to go through mentally to apply themselves and see through on the process to achieve their goal. If we can go down one again, please, Abby. So this has led us to create a 7-step roadmap that breaks down practically the process of developing a successful mindset so that they can succeed not just at our gyms, but also in day-to-day life, and ultimately empower not just young people, but really and truly all people that kind of are part of the community to just pursue those big aspirations. So just an outline of kind of like some of the things that we cover in our mentality program. Sorry, literally 2 seconds ago, I've got someone that is at the door. I'll be 2 seconds. Sorry, Matt. Give me 1 second.
One of the benefits of being able to edit afterwards. Here we go.
Sorry, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so some of the kind of what we found is that by working with young people and listening to them, we started looking at the areas that they really struggle with mentally and what prevents them practically and poses a challenge for them to be able to get what they want out of life. And then based on kind of that work is where we've developed these 7 principles. So the number one thing was actually helping them to define success. Then the second thing was kind of then helping them to kind of manage their mind in terms of emotional intelligence and overcoming the doubt and the kind of fears and insecurities that sometimes prevents them from going out there and getting what they want. And again, through fitness, we're able to kind of develop this and further kind of expand on that work. And then once we do that, we then help them to understand the importance of habits and kind of lifestyle routine and how it impacts, what they're directly trying to achieve. If we could go down one again, please, Abby. Then after that, we look to kind of help them identify their strengths in terms of like their attributes and what comes natural to them, their skills and their support, and then how they can use that to their advantage in terms of helping them kind of, ultimately achieving their goal. And then the other 3 areas is just kind of like looking at what are the kind of things that can hold them back in terms of the environment or the relationships that they're in, and just really truly just thinking through kind of like any potential areas that may prevent them. We talk about values, the importance of values and principles, and how that also impacts their overall being. And then maintaining momentum is really truly about kind of like understanding the more holistic approach around kind of nutrition, rest and hydration, mental health. So we speak about kind of like meditation and mindfulness so that young people are aware of these. And these are things that tend to be kind of well known amongst kind of people that are educated. But a lot of these young kids that we work with, because of the backgrounds that they come from, there isn't many people that's able to show them or explain these things to them. And we believe that these are actually important life skills that once they acquire them, it really and truly does actually, and we've seen, we've had great success stories of young people that have actually walked away from crime and decided to, actually start training. If we could go down one again, please, Abby. Yeah, so practically is our gyms, we've built 3 gyms so far, and our gyms are kind of like also known as bar parks. But the beauty of it is because of the way they're constructed and they're built, is designed to allow young people to learn how to train, and then this then translates into the street workout. And now what street workout really and truly is practically you being able, it's a sport that allows you to perform fitness and exercise, and it's a blend of parkour and gymnastics, and what it's designed to do is it's designed to allow you to practically train anywhere and everywhere. So you could be in a block of flats, and as long as you've got something to hang on to, you can do like pull-ups, or you can do muscle ups or levers, etc. If you could be walking on a bridge, and we see guys sometimes that from our community that walked up like Tower Bridge, and they'll do human flag, which is the image that you're seeing the guy there doing, which are all kind of impressive things. But ultimately, having the ability to be able to do these exercises is what gives young people that kind of confidence and self-belief that they have what it takes to get what they want out of life. If we could go down one again, please. Yeah, so these gyms as well, as much as they're there for to develop the physical aspect and the mental aspect, they're also there like as a hub, and it allows people to come together and to kind of network, form new connections. And sometimes that's what a lot of these young people, and not just young people, but even just people from all areas of the community need, just a place that gives them the opportunity to just network. And one of the beautiful things we see is that we have a lot of kind of like intergenerational exchange going on. So we have, in our gyms, if anyone listening to this is able to visit Instagram and actually see like kind of like Instagram is practically where we really truly kind of show the work we do in the community. And you'll see kids as young as 6 and adults as as up to the age of 62. And everyone's there training, for the same kind of purpose. And in amongst all that training is where, more mature people are able to pass on knowledge and kind of insights to the younger generation. And this is something that we found that in our society, there's been a breakdown in that kind of communication. And that's something we're looking to reestablish again through through this by creating these environments. If we can go down one. Yeah, I've mentioned that we deliver our training 3 times a week, including the holidays. Obviously, with current restrictions on COVID, it's been a challenge, which obviously has impacted us all. However, one way we've gone about kind of overcoming that is by delivering still, calisthenic sessions online through Instagram Live. So we don't do Zoom because we find that Zoom, sometimes could be limited, and and people might not be able to make the time. So, however, if we're doing Instagram Live, people can join in while it's happening, but then we can also save the video, leave it on our kind of like Instagram library, and people can access those sessions anytime they want to do it, or anytime they kind of want to just pull out a session to train at home. And the beauty of calisthenics is that it is body weight training, so it can be done literally anywhere. You can go down one, please. Yeah, so this is kind of like we'll talk about. I mentioned the app, sorry. And if we go down one again, please. Okay, and then so through social media, we kind of do have a bit of a kind of strategy that we follow, and that's aimed at kind of really truly looking to communicate and engage with our urban and youth audience. So we put a lot of shareable content. We put a lot of kind of tutorials, workout of the week. We put like little quotes, inspirational quotes, and then we also, one of the things that we're not shy about is sharing people's fitness journey on our Instagram page. So any person that goes to train at our gym, so even sometimes, if it doesn't necessarily have to be that they train at gyms, any person that's part of the community that tags us, in kind of like their posts on any aspect. Maybe it might be something that they're physically training towards. It might be maybe some kind of mental barrier that they've overcome, or maybe they're doing some worthwhile cause out in the community, which is contributing to positivity. One of the things we find is that by us sharing the content, and one, giving them exposure, but two, recognizing their efforts, it really and truly allows us to kind of develop that real community sense in the sense that, you know, we're not shy and we're not scared of giving people a voice. And, you know, we're not here to kind of follow the usual sort of being cool and you know, and only showing, like, you know, the finalized exercise. We love showing people doing the struggle, you know, struggling to get that first pull up. And, you know, even if it's not a first pull up, even if it's a push up, you know, we really want to humanize physical training so that people, you know, can overcome this kind of like fear of you know, embarrassing themselves because they can't do a specific thing. So finally, yeah, this is just a kind of a video now just to kind of like summarize everything I've said. Thank you.
Every day we're hearing about another stabbing somewhere. I got stabbed at a young age. I never ever thought that anything of that magnitude could happen to me. Because as a result of that, I carried a knife for a long period of time myself because I felt like my safety was jeopardized and that was the only way I could protect myself. The knife culture has evolved and has become a lot more fashionable. People don't want to be disrespected, and we've got a big bullying culture going on. The youngsters are becoming a lot more desensitized to it.
Steel Warriors is a UK-based initiative that aims to recycle all the knife steel taken off the streets and turn it into something positive. We wanted to turn this steel into something that gives young people more confidence in their bodies to walk the streets unarmed.
This is Steel Warriors.
I feel it will give people something to do, be able to train, stay healthy, stay fit, stay strong. That's physically and mentally, you know, because they work hand in hand. I believe it's going to be very positive for people, because you never know what's going to give people inspiration.
Down to a story of changing attitudes and maybe saving lives too.
We installed the first knife steel gym in London's Tower Hamlets, and the response has been phenomenal. From the young people in the community who are training every day, to the police, local government, knife crime charities, and influential figures. All have been vocal in their support of Steel Warriors. Our mission is to expand our network of gyms across the UK, to show people that lives should be built on steel, not destroyed by it.
Yeah. And this is literally kind of, Steel Warriors. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks very much, Rob. So, to a bit of discussion, and I want to come to you first, actually, and on something you mentioned there. You spoke about a viable option on people's doorstep, and that being part of the reason sometimes people turn to crime. That is, it's a viable option on their doorstep. So I wanted to touch on the potential of taking sport to the doorstep, to engaging people in their communities, not at the nearest leisure centre or indeed golf course or cricket club. And I guess the potential in engaging them in a space that is theirs, that they feel ownership. So particularly in terms of a sport for development approach, such as you're taking, how important is that?
It's vital, really and truly, because a lot of the time the barriers that can sometimes, that people can perceive, because sometimes, you have to sign up to be a member of a certain club, or you have to kind of pay a fee, or you have to travel somewhere. That's kind of like one of the things we've aimed to eliminate, and just practically just have these facilities that you don't need to sign up to. There's no commitment. It doesn't tie you down to anything. You turn up, you know it's available, it's accessible, and you're going to get something out of it that ultimately is going to help you change your life.
Great, thanks. Dan, a similar question to you, really. You've been using sport, you're usually taking it to the doorstep, but you're looking to use it for different means, for this sports for development purpose. Again, taking away those other elements of it, how does that help?
Yeah, I think it's just a really focus, actually, rather than using the word sport, it's now community development. And actually, how do we use this as an opportunity and engagement, a bit like Juan and Casey's as well, in terms of actually just bringing that community together to listen to each other, to work together, and just go back to what sport was, which was groups of people coming together to do something they enjoy and socialise and interact with. And I think that's where we've had the real benefit. It's not just stripping the sport back, it's just stripping back how the society in that community area used to work and react with, which has been really powerful. And we've seen that massively within our community clubs that are in that area now, who are engaging in this process and using this opportunity to stop and listen and take on their members, but also the local community around them and actually how they can engage within that group.
And Katie, are you finding similar things in golf?
Yeah, for us, it's all about breaking down preconceptions. It's all about making sure that people are aware that golf is viable within their areas. And the only way to really do that is to bring it to them, to bring it to their doorstep. So largely we have been working through schools and community groups, but going wider than that. So taking it to their doorsteps, on their housing estates, in their local communities, in their youth clubs, in the parks, but also building up that pathway back to golf clubs, and understanding that, for young people, they might want to get to that point. It might be a point that they do want to get back to the golf club. So making sure there is clear pathways back to the club, as well as providing that opportunity on their doorsteps. Great.
So, I mean, we talk a lot about asset-based community development now. So I just wondered, from a sense of asset-based community development, we have hard assets, those physical assets, which when we talk about, we often mean like the clubs or the leisure centres, a golf clubhouse, a cricket pavilion, but of course also those softer assets, those things that are really based in the community, the skills of local people, the community groups. And I guess sport maybe has been focused a lot more, it requires those hard assets when we think of it in those traditional sense. So I'm just wondering about this approach to urban sport, whether it allows you to more focus on those soft assets, and I guess what those soft assets are. When we take away the requirements of those hard physical assets, what are the real key soft assets that are required to bring sport, physical activity, active recreation, play, however we want to talk about it? What are those key assets? Any thoughts there?
Sorry, go on, Dan. You're about to speak.
Sorry, Katie. I was just going to say, I think it's going back to even Ron's thing, is really thing that people want that kind of element of competition or challenge themselves or put themselves up against people, and actually that brings into it a line of communication and listening around that side of things. So actually, it's those human traits that we need, that we've all got, that we need to sort of bring out to the fore and go through that, and actually that allows the discussions and the process to take place. And I think what comes from that is then actually really challenging. What we're finding is not necessarily your normal sports traditional routes that we would have conversation with. We're now talking to wider communities that we never really spoke to, or organisations around real policy change to actually allow this element of sort of communities coming together and being able to engage with each other and challenge each other, really, to achieve and stretch themselves to their ultimate goals.
And Katie?
Yeah, I think for us, outside of kind of, as you say, the larger assets of having to have the clubhouse and everything else, the peripheral stuff that goes around it, for us it's identifying those key kind of deliverers that have that influence in the community. They might not have never even picked up a golf club before, but they've got that influence in the community where they're able to encourage a young group of people to come together and try something new, and have that creativity and imagination to make it work within their local area. So for us, it's really about making it sustainable and trying to train up and make people as aware as possible that golf can be delivered alongside everything else that they're doing.
Great, thanks, Katie. And Juan, when you're looking, so you've now got 3 of these steel Warrior gyms. When you're looking at a new location, what is it that what are the strengths of an area? What are the things that make you think, yeah, this is an area where this can work? So obviously, knives kind of spread about, there's issues there, but what are the strengths of an area that make you think this is why it's going to work here? This is why we're going to approach and put a gym in here.
Ultimately, that's determined through the consultations that we do with the local community, and right from the off, the way we angle our projects is, we want to give the community ownership of the entire kind of of the project. So they choose the gym design, they kind of deem the best area. We speak obviously with the council and the local authority, and include them as well in these discussions. So right from the off, when we're looking to build a gym, it's not a case of us deciding, oh, this is where there's a lot of knife crime, and it's a case of then looking, really and truly listen to the people that live in those communities and saying, look, we need this here. And more often than not, the way the gyms have been built has been actually, people that are into fitness or people that, have recognized that these areas may be lacking in facilities for young people, which then obviously is a factor that leads to kind of young people then, getting involved in crime. But for us, the key thing about just everything we do is that it's something that belongs to the community, where sometimes you might have the more traditional clubs and things that you go to them and it's their kind of building, is their facility. The Steel Warriors gym is the people's facilities, the people's gym. So they're the people that own it. Ultimately, they look after it. It is their space. So that's kind of like what we've always kind of had it in. That's always been our kind of can't figure the word, but that's like our intention. Yeah. Sure.
That's a really interesting thing. I was listening to Mikael Kolve Andersen, the writer of Copenhagen Eyes, speaking the other day, and he spoke about actually how play parks, for instance, were basically something that come out of the car lobby, because previously we had played on the street and it was a form of democracy. It was it was that intergenerational kind of activity that you spoke about, man. Whereas the facilities that we've built aren't that intergenerational necessarily. We create teenage cages of multi-sport use games areas to kind of put people away rather than bring them together. I just wanted to pick up maybe that kind of comment with Katie and Dan and ask, when you're looking for a location, thinking about how you might get more people involved, how you might bring that democracy of intergenerationality to the street. What is it that is a good location when you're looking for somewhere to play cricket or golf in this urban setting? What makes a great location?
I think for us, the Golf Foundation as a charity are more focused on young people under 18, although we are also looking to encourage more family activity. So maybe in areas such as housing estates where you can engage the whole family. So, not just going to the youth clubs where you're only going to find young people, which traditionally are market, as it was, schools, youth centres, community groups, but bringing it to areas where the whole family is. So we have done a bit of work around housing estates and working with councils to enable that activity to be delivered. And quite often, the area around the housing estate or the community centre within the housing estate tends to be a social area where lots of people go from across generations. But as I said, our focus is very much on the young person, but if we can engage the whole family as part of that, then that's kind of an added benefit for us.
Great. And Dan?
Yeah, I think ours is very much around understanding what is going to engage those groups around it. So a lot of people try to get the adults to play the table cricket in that version into muggers, but it's just not big enough for them. So that's where we've opened up the spaces around markets, big car parks. Floodlights is quite a key one because of the nature of the shift work and working those things. So those lighting areas are quite key around those points. But then for Katie's, the juniors is around that safe areas they go to. Allowing them to be creative as well, so taking images they've seen maybe a lot from computer games and stuff like that, and actually how can they then turn the game into something similar they're playing on the computer game and be creative, and allows those sort of ongoing stretch movement patterns and challenges within the game rather than just a basic bat and ball, but there's opportunities for success in a different way as well, and actually encourages that fun and enjoyment side of it, which we found has encouraged a wider number of kids to take part rather than just your normal sporty ones as well.
It's funny how much in all of your presentations actually that word creative or creativity has come out, and I guess that element of, again, ownership, as you're saying, one where people can take ownership of their own activity, and it's not about a set rules. It's about what's the area we have, what can I make out of this, what can I do, what can I make for my own, what's the rules we're going to agree between ourselves, rather than the rules that have been dictated 100 years ago by a few old men in a pub. Oh, yeah, and I guess it's taking it back, that kind of that freedom, again coming back to that democracy, freedom, those kind of ideas. But whilst that's all very exciting, obviously there's barriers. There's what has happened over the last 100, 150 years, and the world that we live of no ball games, and the systems that have been put in place to essentially stop us from playing on the street. So I just wanted to pick up on those. What are the key barriers that you've encountered to adapting sport or physical activity to the street, to people's environments? And have you any tips for the people who might be listening to this, that if they're looking to do this, how they might overcome them?
I mean, from our point of view, we have come across, a lot of red tape, as it was, the no games, oh no, we know that can't happen here. You don't give us a proper reason, but it just can't happen here. There's no ball games. There's a sign that says that you can't play golf here. And I think it's just an education thing. So it's, yes, that has been the case for years and years and years, that you can't have ball games here. But this is what we're trying to do. This is the equipment that we're using. This is, it's safe. This is the impact that we're trying to have on these young people. It's not just about them getting to play golf. It's the, the more nuanced social side of it as well. So improving their personal development. So I think it's really about education and having those key contacts with people to enable you to break down those barriers and get your activity delivered. It's not always easy. There has been a lot of no's, so people just say no straight away. But if you get into the right person, educate them the right way, I think you start getting into those places, and then you can use them as case studies.
Yeah, I think very much so. It's being able to not get caught up in the moment, I think, and step back and understand both sides and try to find where your players and your community want to be active and going through, but then also understanding why those signs might have been put up there, or those policies and that red tape. It certainly is the challenge around it. And once you get to that, and there's some flexibility between the groups and an understanding of the communication, and like I say, and engaging for us with the key bit around that, you can then come up with, might not be that exact area that you initially had the idea around, but it opens up another conversation or another area that comes around. And I think that's the key bit. It's taking a bit of time just to not get too caught up with, actually, we're going to go and do this and we'll open up everywhere, because that isn't possible. But actually, by listening and engaging those groups and fully understanding where both sides are trying to get to, you can then sort of start to see it using an argument to go against why actually we can open that up, and why we can take part there, and why we can play there.
Yeah. Essentially, I guess no ball game signs is using a sledgehammer for a job with the screwdriver. I mean, it's not that they were never put up just to stop ball games. They're stop for a particular. No one's saying no table tennis or marbles here. So I guess that's the question. What was it that was originally the problem? Juan, I guess you might have, obviously not within your gym specifically, but I guess in street workout and stuff like that, no climbing might be more of the issue. Are there any other barriers that you've come up against, and how you've overcome those?
To be honest with you, we haven't actually come up against a lot of barriers, because of the nature, really and truly, of what we're trying to do. It is body weight training, and there's not many people that venture to the more kind of like dangerous kind of part of calisthenics, where they're doing like flips and climbs and twists. But I think if I would say what our main challenge really and truly is dispelling the myth or the perception that if you're not at a certain level of fitness, and it's more like from participants' angle, if you're not at a certain level of fitness, then you're going to embarrass yourself. And we find that tends to be the greatest barrier stopping people from doing fitness just altogether. They feel that if they can't do a pull-up, or if they can't do a press-up, and they're like, oh, well, I'm not gonna get involved because I don't want to embarrass myself. But what we're trying to do is kind of like, as I mentioned earlier, just kind of dispel that kind of myth, and just allow people to understand that it is a natural process, physical development is a natural process, and ultimately you got to kind of get stuck in to overcome it. But
Sure.
That's about it.
Yeah. So I was listening to a lady who said how she'd come across from India a couple of years ago and is working now as a nurse. And she had cycled in India and in Singapore, where she'd lived previously, but she moved here and wasn't quite sure about the laws and rules and what she might be responsible for as a cyclist and things like that, and that had stopped her from picking up cycling. And I guess picking up on that same thing, that what we've built around, or what the public perception is now of our public realm and what we're allowed to do there. I noticed in certainly Juan and Dan's, I think even Katie's, police were involved in your activities. So I'm just wondering what the importance is of engaging groups and organisations, of authority like the police, in trying to deliver things like urban sport and take sport back into the urban environment.
I would say for us, it's actually one of our key partnerships, especially because of the space that we're in and where we're looking to work with the most vulnerable young people that could be more susceptible to getting involved in crime, which results in the violence. Having that partnership with the police and the local authorities, we work with youth offending services, referral units, and also healthcare services in terms of like care homes. This network really and truly is something that is essential, and is what really and truly helps us to reach those young people that may never consider taking part, maybe in Steel Warriors, or maybe in cricket or in golf or anything like that. And it's ultimately their knowledge and kind of their access to these young people. Like when I say they, like the police and all the kind of like organizations that are kind of like gatekeepers in that sense. It's really important that they spread the word and they raise awareness. If a young person, if they do have a situation where they have to deal with a young person, if they say, look, there are these things available, because sometimes all it takes is that young person to engage with one of us three, one of the services that Dan, Kate, or myself are kind of offering, to help them kind of develop the necessary skills, or even just have that shift in perspective to maybe aspire to do something like become a golfer or become a cricketer, or maybe do something in calisthenics or some sport related aspiration. So I think that it's a key partnership.
Right. Dan, I guess similar question to you, and maybe even touching on, I guess, how you convince the police to engage with your activities.
I think it comes back to your point earlier around how do you take down these red tapes and those engaged groups. The challenge is that the police need to be able to communicate and engage with those groups and those communities. And actually, we were providing them a platform to do that and to get forward. It's the same, actually, one of the probably more powerful has been the councillors and the local MPs, because their root cause is they want votes. So they want votes. It's a large proportion of the population and the community that they've struggled to engage with. But actually, here's a way of being actively involved with that, and that's how we wrote. The other one for there was around the London Transport. That was actually probably the bigger piece of that. The Met Police were good, but actually London Transport and London Transport Police, it showed them a way of engaging their area and getting people to show that actually as a way of travelling around London and supporting and things. So you can, going back to my point, if you can understand what's their outcome and their objective they're trying to get to, and how your role can actually play against that, you can then start to open up those conversations quite quickly to that point.
Right. I guess that brings us to a nice question maybe to wrap up with, building upon that, which is, hopefully people listening out to this are going to be thinking, how might they get involved in something like this? How might they support you, or how might they do something similar themselves with their sport? And so, firstly, who are the key partners in something like this? Who else do you need involved? So beyond your own sport, anything like that, who are those key partners that those people will need to reach out to?
I think for us, our kind of key partners would be anyone that wants to deliver golf. So and making them aware that they can deliver golf. So, you know, from whatever organisation you are from, we will work with you in some way to ensure that we can get golf delivered. So whether it be from another sports organisation, whether it's kind of sharing that best practice with them, so how they can maybe adapt their own equipment and adapt their programs to make it suitable for urban environments, or whether it's kind of youth clubs or youth groups, community centres, schools, sports centres, we can look at ways in which we can work with them in partnership, collaboratively, to get golf delivered. So whether that be through equipment providing or through CPD, providing workshops, training for any staff, leaders, volunteers. We're a little bit of an open book, so we're happy to work with whoever would like to engage with the sport.
I mean, I mentioned previously that, you know, local authorities, metropolitan police, healthcare services, but our key partnerships realistically, you know, is the community, because ultimately without the engagement and without the actual involvement of people, then ultimately there would be no, you know, initiative. And we found that by people, especially in the communities, believing that they are a partner, they are part of this, and this is kind of their platform, that's where like the real success lies in, because that's what then opens the kind of door and opportunity to you know, then establish networks with other youth engagement organizations to collaborate. But ultimately, and touching on what Katie mentioned, is anyone that wants to work with anyone, young people, old people, anyone that really truly wants to deliver a service that can bring about a positive, you know, change or positive element into people's lives. So yeah, that's kind of what we would say.
And
yeah, I don't think there's much more to add to that. I think it's just changing that perception of who we're prepared to have those conversation discussions. The movement is there already, and you'll likely find out the groups are playing already. I think it's trying to be honest that we're not going to create anything new. It's just going to allow that opportunity to take place. And I think the key thing for us is them being confident and aware to contact us and say we're not just the traditional form of the game. We're there to look at opening up these community development programs that will create a legacy. So straight away here come these partners straight away, and then others, creating that whole perception in the past, maybe that individual sports work separately and each group works, to actually bringing that together as a collaboratively opportunity really will change that community and provide more opportunities for them to take part.
Great, thank you very much. I guess maybe I'll throw one more out there, and it's a bit for left turn, so I apologise. But if you're going to think of one word, one phrase for people to take away with, if they want to make their sport, adapt their sport to a city environment, to an urban environment, creativities come up a lot. Maybe it's that. But and then any other key takeaways that people should be thinking about if they're trying to make their sport an urban sport?
I think flexibility, kind of take yourself out of your sport and just think more about the environment that you're delivering in. So, you know, you might not be able to do it exactly how you do it at your place of sport. Take yourself out of that and think, right, how can we be as flexible as possible to create a putting game or a chipping game in the environment that you're in? So yeah, around that creativity, innovation, but being flexible as well. So if something doesn't work, okay, doesn't work, let's do something else.
Dan, one?
For us, it'll be just everywhere. Right? If you're going with that mindset that everywhere is a possibility, then you can then be very creative on the back of that and like flexible on that as well. But you've got to go in with this understanding that we can do it everywhere, and that's where that key word came from us. That everywhere is literally a cricket ground. We can turn that into it.
Yeah. I mean, I will kind of touch on what I said earlier, and it's ownership. Just giving people the ownership to own the sport, to own the activity, and for them to you know, make up the rules, as we said earlier. Ultimately, that is what's going to kind of, you know, stimulate them to engage with sport, especially in urban areas, because a lot of the time is where that lack of ownership, you know, where there is a lack of ownership, is sometimes where, you know, there's a barrier and it prevents people from actually, you know, accessing and participating.
Great, thank you. I think that gives us great creativity, flexibility, and ownership by the community, so that we can look at London, everywhere in London, and think of that as having the fabric to support sport, physical activity for people to play. I think that's a great place for us to leave. Thank you very much, Ron, Katie, and Dan, for joining us, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening.